right, welcome to the Integrated Man podcast. Glad to have you with us today. What we do here at Integrated Masculinity is all about helping you become a more integrated, more whole human. So we do that through pastoral counseling. We also have men's groups that we do virtually, Zoom groups, and then we also do adventure trips at least once a year, more. We've got some scheduled coming up, Boundary Waters trip, and then we've got a men's retreat scheduled coming up. You can get more information about that in the show notes. But got a very special guest with me here today. I've got my son, Bryton, joining us today. I'm going to let him give you his bio because it's his bio to give. But I invited him in on the podcast just because I think whether or not we have a younger audience or an older audience, most of the guys that probably watch our podcast are about my age. But I think it's important to get a perspective of a 19-year-old because their generation thinks a little bit differently than ours and processes things a little bit differently than ours. You're probably a little softer than our. They don't think they are, but our generation. But Bryton, give me a quick bio on who you are and kind of where you are in your life's journey.
All right. Hey there, everybody. My name is Bryton Bolduc. I am active duty Air Force. I just went in November of 2025, and I plan to be in for the next 3 years. I have lived, studied, and trained under the great Cory Bolduc for the last 19 years of my life, and I'm excited to see where God's going to send me.
Yeah, didn't pay him to say that. No, we love to mess around. So, thanks for being here today. So Bryton's about to head out to Montana. He's going to be stationed out in Montana, command and control operator out there, going to be guarding nuclear missiles. So hopefully he doesn't have to push any buttons or tell anybody to push buttons or anything like that, because if so, we're all in trouble. But anyways, excited for your journey, proud dad moment, being in the Air Force, sending your kid off to the military. So kind of as a whole, I wanted to kind of pick your brain on masculinity, right? What does it mean to be a man? You've You've heard my message for 19 and a half years, of what it means to be a man, what it looks like. How does that kind of work itself out in your age group? And I know you've got a lot of friends, and your friends sharpen each other and stuff like that. You try and talk about things that get in the way of you being the best man you can be, or a more integrated man. Give me your perspective on manhood, masculinity, what it takes to be a man in today's society.
So my idea of manhood and masculinity is it's primarily one word, and that word is discipline, right? It's discipline in the gym, reading your Bible, maintaining a relationship with God. And I feel like that's something truly lacking in my generation. And obviously, yes, I have friends that we sharpen one another, but we're not as disciplined as where we should be or where we want to be, per se.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying it's all about discipline, or that's just like a foundational component?
It's a foundational component. Obviously, there's branching off, and obviously not. Sorry, I'm saying obviously.
That's okay.
It's about providing stability and structure. So, to be a man, in my eyes, you've been a great example for me, is to provide peace in a family. When you're not around and things go wrong, people get nervous. But when things go wrong when you're around, everything's going to be okay. And that doesn't mean you necessarily have all the answers, but that means that you're going to figure it out. Sure.
So bringing stability in that situation. So provider.
Absolutely.
Right? The 3 P's of masculinity. We talked about this at our fire last week. So provider, protector, procreator. Right? That third one is all the ones the guys are like, yeah, that's great. So let's talk about provider and protector. Break that down into what areas do you feel like a man needs to be a provider in?
So I believe, like I said, a man needs to be a provider in the area of stability, right? And biblically, also monetarily. So I believe that the man should be the primary provider for the household, allowing the woman to be the primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that I believe every man should strive for, and every household should ideally accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
But not just a provider of money, but a provider of, like I said, stability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want a household that is at peace when you're home and not when you're not. And that's not a message of selfishness or anything like that, but that's something that you want to desire, because that means it's a complete puzzle.
Sure.
When a puzzle piece is missing, the puzzle's not complete. And it sounds so obvious, but it's missing from the minds of so many Americans and people in general.
Sure. So, first one you said financially. I think the second one I would probably define as emotionally.
Absolutely.
Right? Probably an unpopular opinion in your age bracket, maybe, for the man to be financially the provider so the woman can be the primary caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
you've got, in my generation, and I've seen in yours, kind of independent women, this kind of mindset of, I don't need a man, I can provide. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say whether I'm not going to go into that now.
Mm-hmm.
But so financially, emotionally, what about spiritually? How should a man spiritually provide in his household?
Yeah, so spiritually, men should lead their families in Christ,
Mm-hmm.
right? Provide the example, encourage activities,
Mm-hmm.
encourage reading your Bible, encourage spending quiet time. And that's something that you've encouraged in me.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up 30 minutes early and just sit and be with God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I believe every man in every household should have and encourage.
Sure. So yeah, that's great. So financially, emotionally, spiritually, and then mentally, of course, I think there's some areas where you create, like you were saying earlier, create an environment of stability, health. I think for mental health, that's a huge,
Absolutely.
a huge area where you need to provide as a man and be an encourager and be, one who's trying to consistently, look out for the mental state of your family.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that's has been a challenge for me because of the dynamic between your mom and I, right? Your mom is high emotional quotient, right? And I'm high intellectual quotient. And so you are very good at processing your emotions. You're probably better. I would say you're better than I am at processing your emotions. Kudos to your mother. Mm-hmm. That's from the influence she's had throughout your journey. When you and I get together, we're always talking about the intellectual stuff. Mm-hmm. Many times, not always,
yes,
but many times talking about the intellectual stuff. And I think that's important in being able to process and being a whole, being a complete man. And sometimes that can be challenging for men my age who are fathers that I've talked to, because they don't have necessarily the emotional bandwidth that you do. Mm-hmm. So when their kids come to them with all of this emotion, they're like, I don't want to deal with this, Mm-hmm. And it goes back to resonating in the core question of every man's journey is, do I have what it takes? Right? We constantly wrestle with that question, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We're asked the question internally, do I have what it takes? And when we hit a situation that answers that question, no, instead of jumping into it and figuring out, what can I learn? More times than not, we go, I don't want to deal with that. We just take a step back. Yeah. So what are some things maybe that you actively do when you say, I'm faced with a situation where I feel maybe like I'm not going to have what it takes in that? You just jumped into basic training, mm-hmm. right? And had 2 months of that, and then 2 months of tech school after that. Mm-hmm. That is a situation that is designed to expose the fact in you that you do not have what it takes. Mm-hmm. You're a peon. You're nothing. Like just all of that's wrapped up in that. So how did you handle with that, talk yourself through that, wrestle with that? And what were some of the components that maybe helped?
Yeah, so for BMT, for basic military training, I did something that was a lot less healthy. I took a step back, I analyzed my emotions, and my emotions were so overwhelming that I just shut them down. And that's what I feel like a lot of men do, and that's not healthy. Sure. Because a good man requires balance emotionally, physically, intellectually, in order to provide a good, healthy, balanced household. But for that, I stepped back and I kind of put my emotions on the sideline, because you're getting so much thrown at you, and if you have any emotion, they're going to use that as a weapon against you. So it wasn't healthy, but it was something I needed to do, and something that my brain told me I needed to do for survival.
Sure.
And that wasn't obviously I bettered myself through BMT. Yeah. Right? I gained more discipline, I gained respect, but I lost a lot of capacity for emotion. Because they took that and they weaponized it against you to try and break you.
Sure. So, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, right? Our wiring as men, I don't know if anybody's ever read this book. It's on wiring versus men and women and how our brains are wired. It's called Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti. In the ways that we think, right? Men think in these small boxes that really aren't connected to one another. We have the capacity to think here and kind of box everything else out. Yeah. Whereas women's minds are like a big pile of spaghetti. Everything is connected to everything, and you're chasing one strand, and all of a sudden it touches another one and goes off in this direction and goes off in that direction. So I won't necessarily say that the way I think you handled that was negative, but because it's helpful in that situation. But I think it can be toxic if that is a consistent behavior that encompasses every area of your life.
Absolutely.
So how did after you got out of basic training, where there's not that danger anymore, right? I hear a lot of guys that wrestle with this coming back from combat as well. When you get out of that situation, how did you process to be like, okay, everybody's not trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I'm not going to always be the person who, if I show emotion, gets demeaned for it or whatever. How was your transition back into normal life? I say active duty life as opposed to basic training. Kind of how did your brain process through that and coming back to maybe what you feel like is kind of a healthier place now?
Yeah, so I feel like you've witnessed this greatly. We went out to eat after graduation, and I was just dumbfounded at the way that people acted, in the sense of, like, I always felt innately that I was doing something wrong. I felt like whatever I did, there was something wrong with it. Sure. And I was about to get punished.
Yeah.
So
You're on high alert.
I was very high alert.
Yeah.
I was scared to act. I was scared to talk.
Yeah.
And that was something BMT instilled a fear inside of me, and it took probably about 3 weeks to break that fear. Yeah. Well into my first month of tech school. And it was so interesting, because it was like I had to relearn to socialize, because I'm with this group of like 50 guys, and we're all talking, we're all shooting the breeze, whatever.
Yeah. But
that's not real conversation. That's survival.
Sure.
And they had us have that social interaction so we didn't go insane. But right. if it was a flight of one person and 2 drill sergeants per one person, everybody would have left. Yeah. Everybody would have been gone. If you couldn't hide in the crowd, if you couldn't be invisible, you weren't surviving, unless it was in a positive way.
Sure. So even you're not just going through this challenge and this misery on your own. You've got brothers that are kind of enduring this with you. Absolutely. Of like, okay, I'm not the only one being demeaned or diminished. There's all of us are, and we're gonna figure out a way to misery loves company this whole 4 weeks or 8 weeks together. That makes sense to have people to go through it with you. Yeah,
and that instilled like such a deep sense of brotherhood, but it was so fragile, because by the end, as soon as we started getting the slightest bit of freedom, okay, you guys have this time to fix your wall locker areas, and they gave us like hours, and then we fixed our wall locker area, and then we didn't know what to do, so we just sat with each other. We began to resent each other because there was nothing holding us together other than that trauma, other than that need for survival. And I think that's something that it gets shown a lot in our society.
So how so? Talk more about that.
So in our society, a lot of relationships are formed because they're beneficial, right?
Yep. What can you do for me? Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of how the idea was at BMT, right? Like this person, hey, can you come help me with my wall locker? Hey, can you teach me how to do a left face correctly? Hey, can you teach me how to march? Hey, how do I salute? You know, and you could ask your fellow wingman for advice, and you could ask him how things were going, but you were only doing it for the benefit or entertainment of yourself. And that's something that I don't necessarily agree with, how the structure was. It was a very selfish structure, but it was also to instill and ensure that whoever made it out and went into the Air Force was self-sufficient enough in order to be a good warrior.
So if I'm processing correctly, you're saying there was zero relationship with other guys outside of what you could do for me.
Absolutely.
How can you help me? Why do you think that was?
I think that was because we were in such a survival mindset. I think under different circumstances, some of them would have been like really good friends outside, right? And a bunch of them were like just, I don't know, they were coming up with songs together. They were making plans for like, oh, when we get out of BMT, we're going to start a podcast, pun intended, right? And they were just coming up with all these ideas, but it was all entertainment.
Sure.
It was all superficial. None of it was deep enough in order to provide real relationship that lasted past BMT. Because as soon as we got to tech school, everybody broke off. They found their own crowd. They started going out on the town, gambling, drinking, going to clubs, doing whatever.
Yeah.
And just breaking off with their own specific friend groups. And what we were, like our bond became so close at BMT, but it was so shallow. Incredibly shallow.
It was just based on the pain that you
Absolutely.
endured. And, once the pain was done, the bond was done, basically. Yeah. Interesting. So then you transitioned to tech school. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Tech school was a lot more freedom. We had our phones back. We could call our family. And the heartache from homesickness was a lot less there, which, frankly, that's what broke a lot of people at BMT, But the people that didn't have a good relationship with their family were equally as sad because they were just miserable.
Sure.
They had nothing they were fighting for. They had nothing that they were hoping to go see at graduation.
Right. Yeah, nothing to look forward to. So tech school you go and the relationships change a little bit, or are they still kind of...
Yeah, relationships change because everybody's a little more independent. We went to school every day, about 10 hours every day. And obviously, like in the classroom, right, bonds form in the classroom, and they can go past the classroom. Mine did, at least while I was there. It's a very tight brotherhood, but the brotherhood is very fragile. So I went out and socialized with a bunch of the guys in my class, in my manor, in my hall. And I just hung out with them. I went to the gym with them. I went to stores. I went out to eat. I spent a lot of money at Qdoba. Qdoba is dangerous. But the bond there, it's so different.
Yeah.
Because it's not based on survival.
Sure.
It's not based on betterment. It's like, okay, I choose to hang out with this person. And if I don't want to, I don't have to.
Sure.
It's not like you're in a bed right next to them when you sleep every night. Sure, you have a roommate, but you have a choice for them to be your friend. You can simply coexist. Yeah. That's what I did with my first one.
So you go through basic, you go through tech school, you're back in you're back home for a couple weeks, interacting back with the guys that you normally do. And you have a whole life ahead of you now, right? And so what we like to focus on, the podcast, is becoming a complete man, and the ways that we do that, and the areas of attention that we need to give to in our lives, of going, like, how do I grow in this area? It's very simple. How do I grow physically, right? I think physical, a lot of guys either have that down or don't care, or like, whatever, I don't care about growing physically. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I don't think we're lacking for information. We know what we need to do to make progress in certain areas. But I do think so many of the men I talk to feel like they're just failing. They feel like they're just blowing it in their own life, blowing it as a father, blowing it as a husband, blowing it as a man. When it comes to your age category, because I know you're involved with a lot of different guys, a lot of different backgrounds and stuff like that, now from your childhood, but also from military guys that you're still in contact with, what are some of the key things that get in the way? Like, what are some of the key stumbling blocks for guys your age that are trying to become a better man, but just feel like they're flailing or feel like they're failing, in these areas? What are some of those that you see?
I see a lot of struggle with pornography and lust, and that I feel like that's applicable to almost all age groups of men, because it's one of the devil's strongest tools.
Right.
But additionally, I feel like pride is a very easy thing to get in the way, because everybody has only lived their life from their perspective, right? So everybody only knows truly what benefits them. We have an idea of what benefits others, but we have no clue if that's actually happening.
Yeah.
And I think that the me mindset often gets in the way of us helping others. And I think that in order to be like a well-rounded, balanced man, you need to be concerned for not only yourself, but for those around you, those close to you. Yeah. And to break that pride is a very hard thing for my generation, because especially I've noticed this in Christian guys, right? They're very stuck in their ways, in the ways that they've been raised. They're like, that's objectively wrong. And me being raised in the household that I have been, with mom being more an emotional feeler and you being an intellectual, I'm like, okay, let's analyze, how does this make us feel? What does the Bible say? And what does God say we should do about this?
Sure.
And they don't hardly take it deeper than that. Like, they pull up verses that are condemning, right? And they say, this is why this is wrong. But I'm over here on the other end, like, let's analyze why we feel this way, why we're so focused on experiencing this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think whether it's pornography or pride, it's usually comes from a deeper place of a desire. Like, your mom likes to say this phrase, all behavior makes sense, right? All behavior makes sense. And whether it's a place of trying to medicate something, or a place where we're trying to prove that we're somebody we're not, I think there's often a driver behind that to go, yeah, I've got to, if people saw who I truly was, they probably wouldn't accept me, or maybe they wouldn't like me as much, or whatever. So they have to put on this version of who they're not, which kind of leads to, the poser mentality, right? You're a poser, you're a pretender, and people spend so much of their life trying to prop that image of themselves up. But I think it comes from a core desire, right? Like, we want to be wanted, we want to be accepted, and if we can't find a genuine acceptance with the people that we're around, we'll just take the fake substitute. Yeah. Whether that's a group of friends that are fake, or a feeling of being a man by looking at pornography, or by posting something that is disingenuous online, so that I can get likes on my post, when it's not really who we are. I think the mental aspect of especially pornography, 70% of men admit to looking at pornography on a regular basis.
Yeah.
70%. And I don't think people really recognize how toxic that is to your view of the opposite sex, your view of yourself, your view of what it takes to be a man, your view of marriage, your view of intimacy as a whole. It toxifies that, and it rewires your brain to expect something that is not, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
So you get that you literally do live in this fantasy world inside of your head, and you get driven by things that you're like, that doesn't, it's not real life. It's pretend.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to playing pretend.
It's production.
If we can't get the real thing, we'll settle for the fake substitute or the cheap imitation, if you will. And that ends up toxifying and rotting our brain. And behavior modification will only get you so far.
Yeah.
Right? You can put boundaries in place, and you can put, covenant eyes or safe eyes on your phone, and make sure you only look at things through this browser, and have people help build boundaries in your life. And I think that's good to a degree.
Yeah.
But it only helps you learn how to function within a fence. What happens when that fence is removed is you didn't really address the core issue. You addressed, you basically put yourself in a cage, and kept everything away from you. I think that's good. Like I said, I think that's good for a time period if you need it. But I think if you don't get down to the core issue of what your true desire is when you're seeking these things, that you're never going to truly reach a place of freedom in your life. So what are some of the things that you feel like help counteract that posing, that desire for pornography, that pride, that whatever it is? What are some of the things that you think help?
Yeah, so obviously, like you said, those blockers in those web browsers and those apps and those safeguards, right? Those are all right methods, but they'll only work as long as you don't want it.
Yeah, right.
If you want it, you're going to find a way around. You're going to turn it off. You're going to go look at it anyway. So what I believe is darkness can't live in light. So be open about your relationship with pornography and lust to your fellow brothers in Christ primarily, and to people older and wiser than you, but not to necessarily say they're not dealing with it as well.
Sure.
But the weight is lighter when it's carried together. Additionally, pride. Pride's a very, it's interesting because as you've noticed throughout my life, I've struggled with pride greatly. I think a good way to get rid of that is to put yourself in situations where you're forced not to. Like, put yourself in servant positions. Serve at church. Serve around your community. And honestly, that's something that's blocked me from serving. But additionally, I think, obviously, it's so simple, right? Reading the Bible. Like, just getting the word in on a daily basis. I notice in my personal life, when I get the word in, like actually read it in a physical book, which on your phone's great, you're getting it in. But on a physical book, it's so different when it's tangible. I notice my relationship with temptation is so much easier to resist. It's so, because you feel that spiritual connection with God.
Yeah, that's good. It's like washing yourself in the Word, right?
Absolutely.
Which the Bible tells us to do. Yeah, I think if it becomes from a place of just discipline, and discipline is important. It's vital in your life. I'm a big advocate of discipline. I structure my day and do my thing the same almost every day. So I don't want to shortcut discipline. but discipline is not a substitute for heart transformation. And I think it sets the stage for that. But if you're never getting to the root of what's really going on inside of you, that transformation never happens. And some of the things that can get in the way of that are that we have these sins in our lives. Say we've got this, habit of running to pornography for medication or for comfort or for whatever it is. And then we do that, and then all of a sudden we're riddled with shame. And we condemn ourselves for the behavior, we ask for forgiveness, and then we never really deal with the core root of why we were running to that in the first place. We just shove it down, we put it to the side, and then the cycle just repeats itself. And if we never truly get to what is it that I'm seeking, what is the true desire in my heart and in my life, then it's hard, it's difficult for us to really get to a place of freedom. That place of freedom is possible. Guys silently struggle with this so much. Or pride that can masquerade itself as achievement or confidence, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference between confidence and pride in a minute.
Absolutely.
And guys that are like, they're seeking affirmation. They're seeking the attaboy. They're seeking the look at me. And a lot of that comes from a place of not truly knowing who you are at your core. What makes up who Bryton is, who Cory is, who you are? What is it at your core? If you had to strip everything away, your job title, your relationship title, your responsibilities, strip everything away from you, and what makes you who you are, part of that is finding your identity in Christ as a son. Identity as a son is huge, and I'm not talking about my son, even though that is helpful.
Yeah.
An origin story of knowing, where did I come from and what's my heritage and all of that stuff. But even so, we're not just physical beings.
Yeah.
We're spiritual beings, and we have a heavenly heritage that works itself out in our lives that may not necessarily be visible, but is a reality, and a reality that I think is larger than what we give it credit for.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important to recognize.
So you mentioned heart change, right? And how that's such a hard thing to have, to grasp, to desire. And that's how so many men deal with lust and pornography and pride and ego throughout their entire lives without ever breaking free. So I believe it requires three main things. It requires discipline, like we said, because that's an aspect, right? Sure. It requires desire, because you have to want it in order to get better. Yeah. And it requires depth, because you got to dig deep. You got to understand what the core problem is. And what I believe in a lot of men is our core problem is we want to have control. Lust and pornography, it gives us I pick what's on the screen.
Right.
I pick when I flip the page in the magazine. I pick what I watch on Netflix.
Sure.
And it's such a toxic mentality.
Yeah.
But it's something that the devil uses every single day in millions of men.
Yeah. It's like a noxious drug that you're addicted to that drives you. Now the addiction is what's driving you, and you're not necessarily conscious of what began it in the first place, right? I think that's good. What did you say? Discipline, desire,
and depth.
Yeah, that's good. I think I'm going to write a sermon on that. No, that's really good. And I think it's the same thing with pride and with any of those things that we deal with. It can be a challenge for sure. And I think the level that we're willing to admit that we struggle with it is the level to which we will gain victory over it.
Absolutely.
If you hide it in the dark and never, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning. Sin is just the opposite of positive growth in our lives. Positive growth, I feel like the more we bring it out into the light, the more it grows, right? The more we get inspired, the more we see other people do it, the more we want to do it and stuff like that. Well, sin and shame is just the opposite. The more we hide it, the more it grows. It like festers in secret, and we just kind of hide it, and it becomes bigger and different and changes and more intense, and the desire and stuff like that. I think where many guys get hung up is to the point of temptation, right? How we handle temptation matters. There's a story in the Bible of Joseph, right? Potiphar's wife comes to Joseph and she's like, "Come to bed with me." What does Joseph do? Beelines it. I'm out of here. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to run from this. Immediate reaction is I'm going to run, and then I'll process through what's just happened.
Yeah.
And I think men either feel shame for being tempted or stop at the point of temptation, and they're like, man, I just I feel bad for being tempted. Well, temptation is a common thing.
Absolutely. Jesus was tempted.
Jesus was tempted. You go to the gym, you can be tempted. You go to the beach, you can be tempted. You watch regular TV. Like it's the temptation is there. It's normal. It's how we handle the temptation that matters, and what we do with that will help us either get to a place of freedom or not, or stay stuck in the cycle of that. So I kind of want to shift gears here and talk just a little bit more about kind of your formation growing up, right? Some of the formative parts of your life and places in your life where you're like, that was a pivotal moment, for good or bad, in my life that really changed the trajectory, or changed how I process things, or changed how I feel about certain things or certain people or whatever. What were some of the biggest formative moments in your life? I know, like, planning a church was difficult, to be an engaged dad, because you have 100 to 200 people that are constantly like needing your time and your attention and stuff like that, and it was always a challenge to find that balance. But there are some formative moments. I remember we had you in Boy Scouts, and that was kind of a formative thing, or at least I had hoped it would be. Royal Rangers is what I did as a kid, which is the Jesus version of Boy Scouts. And that was kind of formative for me, but we try to do a camping trip every year. I wanted that to be a formational experience for you and stuff like that. But what were some of the ones that you remember that kind of stand out to you as formative, maybe I'd call them initiation moments in your life growing up?
Yeah, so a big one for me, just living at the farmhouse, right?
Yeah.
So the first house that I remember was it wasn't a big farmhouse, but it was a farmhouse on a lot of land. Yeah. And the farmers that ran the land, they were super chill. They let me and my brother out in the wilderness, just playing on the hay bales, playing in the fields, doing whatever.
Yeah.
And that was definitely formative because I learned how to be bored. This was before I had a phone. I was 5 to 12 years old, and I didn't know what to do, so I came up with stuff to do. Yeah. My imagination ran rampant, and I had so much fun hopping the fence, climbing the hay bales, running down to the small creek in our backyard, and just using my imagination. And that was something that was definitely formative, because a lot of kids, especially nowadays, they're straight out the womb and they're put on a screen. They don't learn that. They don't know that. And something that's so formative in formative years, I believe that's really important. Yeah. Boy Scouts, that was fun. That encouraged a good social aspect. I don't think that changed me as much as you might have wanted it to, but it was definitely a fun experience. Yeah. Doing the Pinewood Derby. I learned how to lose via the Pinewood Derby, and that was a lot of tears. A lot of tears were shed when I got 5th place out of 5.
Yeah, I actually talked about that in another podcast about our Pinewood Derby experience. I think that was traumatic for both of us.
Yeah, that was. Oof. Another big one was Porcupine Mountains. So every year we went on a camping trip, like you mentioned, and that was the worst year. It was so bad, but it taught me grit. We were trudging through 6 inches of mud, getting more mosquito bites than probably some kids in Africa.
It was bad.
It was so bad. And then we got to our campsite and it was beautiful. And then night came and dusk fell. And the mosquitoes got so much worse and our tent was broken and ticks were falling on it. It was literally like a horror movie experience.
Yeah, it was bad. Tent was broken. We had no place of refuge. It was
nothing.
Yeah, it was rough.
It was that was growing because it taught me grit. It taught me hard.
Yeah.
And I think these are like the big 3, big 4.
Sure.
The final big one was last summer, right? I was at a church camp and I realized my friends from high school weren't really pulling me in a direction where I wanted to go. They're doing drugs, sleeping around, drinking alcohol, just breaking the law, doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey guys, I'm going to take a step back from the group chat for a little while. And maybe I was harsh with my words, but what happened afterwards, they all cut me off completely. I wasn't looking for a cutoff of friendship. I was looking for a step back of behavior.
Sure.
I was completely cut out of their lives. They said, go F yourself. Screw you. Like, I never want to see you again. All these things because I texted some stuff in a group chat. They hoped I failed and became a barracks bunny in the military. Which, like, it showed the immaturity of the group.
Right. What's a barracks bunny?
It's somebody who sleeps around with everybody in the barracks. Which, I mean, I didn't go Navy, so I don't know why they even thought that. But like, recently I talked with them, and they were like, yeah, we were all emotionally immature. We all overreacted. And I was like, okay, me too. But why did we choose to react that way?
Right.
You know, like why did we all not take a step back? And that taught me to really analyze who my friends were. And I went 5 months without talking to hardly anybody. I was going to work, going to the gym, and going home, all by myself. And I had like acquaintances at church. I'd be like, "Hey man, how you doing?" And then we'd catch up. Yeah. But that's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Those are some formative experiences. You know, you've got the adventure. Like when you were young, living at the farmhouse, there was that freedom for adventure that I think every man craves in his life. And then you kind of grow up and you have the Pinewood Derby crisis, and I built that car, so I'll take half of the credit for that. But then the grit experience of the Porcupine Mountains, and that was tough for both of us.
Yeah,
you know, because I underestimated my ability and didn't take into account any of the conditions that we were going to encounter, because it was all frontier. I didn't know what was coming, and I didn't expect it, and I expected you to have a higher level of grit and resilience than you should have had at your age. So I kind of tried to pull that out of you, or yell at you, or yell it out of you, and then, but I think it was one of those adversity experiences that just taught us both how to pivot and how to go, okay, I'm not going to try and, make something that is impossible to make, but I am going to take the experience and learn, okay, there are going to be some garbage things that are thrown my way in life that I have to push myself through. And then the relational side of things, knowing that you can really only control your actions, and people around us are unpredictable, and sometimes they'll turn on us. Maybe we could have communicated things better, maybe not, but I think that's, just an important lesson moving forward. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, it is best just to step away and go, okay, I'm not going to jump into this because it's just going to make it worse. Let's just take this as a learning experience, and, I'll put my head down and grind like I need to, apart from the relationships that just abandoned me, and I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna grow stronger on my own, and maybe eventually circle back, but if not, that's okay too.
Yeah.
So I think that's good, and I think some of the formational stuff in our lives are often some of the hardest times. Those are some of the biggest growth moments, and those are some of the moments I think that we should be hungry for in life, constantly trying to put us in situations where we're uncomfortable, not harmful, but uncomfortable. And I think those are the ones that truly make us grow.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm all about. That's what I think becoming a man's all about. That's what we want to be about here at Integrated Masculinity. It's great. So let's wrap up with the 3 Ds you gave us. Discipline, desire,
and depth.
I think those were good. Those are a good 3 to lean on as far as what are some action items that you should look for in your own journey, and taking and going, okay, I want to be a better person. I need to have discipline in my life. I need to have a desire or kind of a vision for where I want to head. And then I need to have a level of depth, whether that's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever it is. I need to have a level of purpose or meaning. I got to have a why beyond just these things that I'm doing. So, Bryton, love you, man. Appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. If you guys want more information about everything that we do, integratedmasculinity.life or integratedministries.life. If you're looking for help with personal counseling, pastoral counseling, marital counseling, anything like that, we do a little bit of all of it. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.